Screen Slurps.
Hello and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss the good, the bad, and the savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Laura Herlocker.
And how does that make you feel, Laura?
Well, it makes me a little sad.
Yeah?
Yeah, a little sad, but also a little happy.
What does that make you think about when you think about getting older tomorrow?
Oh, God, no. I don't want to think about getting old. It's so depressing.
So, this question comes in relation to the movie we're talking about this week. The movie Come On, Come On from 2021. That's right. Come On, Come On is kind of a new movie. I mean, 2021 was from last year, I remember correctly.
Time is like a
irrelevant.
social. Yeah, I was about to say, what is time anymore? Like last year, this year, it's all the same thing.
What was last night? What is tomorrow?
Exactly. Time is a social construct.
Yeah, who's what? One is now.
Also, every time we say the title of this movie, I think of that one Spice Girls song where they're like, "Come on, come on, come on." Do you remember that one?
No.
Oh.
There's another song that I think of where it's literally called Come On, Come On. But...
Oh, the Spice Girl one is the one in the Spice World movie where the guys come out with the assless chaps.
Oh, yeah?
You remember that part? And it's like, come on, come on.
I think of the song by the Von Bondies called Come On, Come On.
You wanna be in my way, my way, my way. That's the Spice Girl one.
Yeah, you lost me, but...
You reviewed Spice World, Adam. You should remember every single movie you've ever reviewed.
I'm not in Spice World anymore. I have left the Spice World. The last time I was in the Spice World was when we were watching the new season of The Circle. But
I thought you were going to say something about cooking dinner with the spices.
No, that's a different train that I left. But regardless, this week's film is Come On, Come On. And come on, people... Put this movie on.
Come on.
Yeah, come on. And understand what we're about to talk about. But you'll understand soon enough as we start describing all of the traits of this film and then some. But first, we're going to talk all about the things we've been doing other than watching Come On, Come On. And that would be our side slurps. If this is the first time you're listening to our podcast, our side slurps are the things we've been doing other than watching this film. Things like watching other TV shows, other movies, maybe even driving a car, driving new cars, maybe even scuba diving. I can't fathom the kinds of other things we've been doing.
Who knows with you and I, honestly? Like, it could be some random things that come up every now and then.
There are some crazy things, and I've got some crazy stories to tell, so I'll get into all that. But first, Laura, what are some of the things you've been doing this past week?
All right, I got a good list this week because I've just been watching tons of things. First of all, my book of the week is Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. And she has a few books that she's written. I really liked the first one, I think, that she wrote. That was called Let's Pretend This Never Happened. So when this one came up on
Was she talking about our podcast?
Well, no. Our podcast didn't exist then.
No!
Just kidding.
Jenny Lawson, come on!
No, but her first book was really good. And then this one, her new one, actually, I think she has an even newer one, maybe. But anyway, this one came up on Kindle, is free. And actually, I showed Adam my Kindle and I was like, pick one for me to read. And he chose this one, which is really great. So Jenny Lawson, she's quite funny. She's not a comedian, though. She's just like a writer. But she definitely deals with some mental illnesses. And so it's just kind of a collection of these like thoughts, really, about her life that are in this short story-esque kind of collection of essays, I guess we'll say. It's a really interesting book. She's a very interesting woman. She really likes taxidermy. So, which is
Jenny.
great. Yeah. So the cover of the book is this taxidermied raccoon that she got. That's like, looks like he's like really ecstatic, which kind of goes with the title of the book, Furiously Happy.
I'm going to be honest. I had no idea that this had to do with Jenny Lawson's love of taxidermy. And I just picked out that book because of the raccoon. And
it's an actual taxidermy raccoon she has.
I thought it would be a pleasant book about raccoons or fuzzy animals that like to talk with one another.
It's about mental health.
I had no idea.
On the cover of her other book, Let's Pretend This Never Happened, she has a taxidermied mouse that has like a cape and a sword, if I remember right. So she's really good with covers because they pull me in. Anyway, that's the book that I'm reading. I'm still reading it, so I'm not done yet, but I'm sure I'll finish it probably this weekend and then move on to something else. We had a couple friends in town this last weekend, so that was a lot of Adam and I's weekend. What did we do with them? We went to Do Division, which is like a street festival here in Chicago. We went to Replay, which is a really cool arcade bar that we really like. And actually, fun fact is where Adam and I went on our first date almost 4 years ago now. Forever ago. But so we hung out with our friends. And while they were here, we watched the movie Uncharted, which, Adam, we may need to go off on a little tangent right now and talk about Uncharted.
Let's just say that Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg do not look enough like Nathan Drake or
Sully.
Yeah, or Sully.
And that's the thing. Like, they're both great actors. Tom Holland's great. Mark Wahlberg's great. But they are not Nathan and Sully. Like, I don't know. The movie just didn't feel like it was the same vibe or feeling as the video game. It was trash. The movie was trash, in my opinion.
I think when you get to the end of the film and see Mark Wahlberg with a mustache, though, it's kind of like a warm beginning of what the film could become into sort of blossoming into what it should be, where it's like, okay, now I see Mark Wahlberg's character becoming what Sully really should be with this mustache, and what his character should be, this older, more, I kind of want to say more masculine, aged character with this mustache and everything. And then Nathan Drake is wondering in the credits sequence or the very end of the film, why does he have this mustache? And he's asking about that. And I'm thinking, though, at that point, why is Nathan Drake so young?
Yeah,
and how does he not understand Sully having a mustache?
It just didn't do it.
It's just the characters in the Uncharted film are like young versions of what the characters are in the video games.
Even that, though, I get it. Okay, they did younger versions. I still don't feel like Tom Holland's like snarky Spider-Man was what Nathan Drake, his sarcasm, snarkiness is in the video games.
Yeah.
I just feel like there was a disconnect on his character and how he's totally different, I feel like, in the games than he is as Tom Holland portrayed him.
It would be like if Nathan Drake and Sully were 10 years younger.
I don't know. But again, this is maybe a conversation we can have in like a bonus episode or something. I feel like in general, video game film adaptations suck. Like, there are not that many that are good. Right? I mean, Resident Evil, like the horror films are the only ones that are good. Resident Evil, Silent Hill, those are the only ones. Every other video game franchise that's been made into a movie, like, tanks. And so, as you're saying, they set it up in the end of Uncharted to do another movie, but the first one did not do well. So I don't even know if they're going to be greenlit to do a second movie. So we probably won't even get that.
Yeah, many, many times, more often than not, many video games that then turn into movies, it is a hard sell. I mean, everyone's going to go see it for the most part. Most of the times you are going to go to the movie theater.
You hope for a good adaptation. One
But
time you hope for a good one. Like, okay, so going into the second, my other thing that I've been doing is I've been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Obsessed with that game right now. The movie, I had high expectations for because it was Michael Fassbender, who's a great actor. I was like, oh, this movie adaptation will be great. And that was probably even worse than Uncharted. They're just not good.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the last video game film that I actually saw that I can remember was just like, whoa, that was amazing.
Resident Evil. That's all I got. That's literally the one I think is really good. Yeah, I did watch one other movie that I wanted to talk about in my side slurps this week. So it's called Blythe the Spirit, and it stars oh my gosh, my mind is totally gone blank. Helen Mirren and the guy from Downton Abbey. who is also the Beast in the Beauty and the Beast live action. I'm forgetting their names. I apologize. But anyways, it's set in like the early 1900s in England, and it's about this writer whose wife had died and he's remarried and he's trying to come up with a screenplay. So they hire a medium to come who they don't believe, but just like have her come in to get ideas or whatnot. And the medium actually successfully brings back his dead wife. And then there's all of this, you know, like love triangle things between him, his dead wife, and then his current wife. And it actually gets pretty dark in the end. I had really high expectations from it because it just looked fun and looked like something I would really like, but it was not that great of a movie. So again, another movie I watched this week that was not great. I think that's all I wanted to talk about. We'll stop there. Adam, what are your side slurps?
Okay, well, first thing I'm going to say, and this is why our podcast was on hold for a week, was because I went to the dentist and had to have my mouth fixed, and it put a little bit of a hold on us for a hot second. So makes me feel like I was in Little Shop of Horrors just a little bit.
I am a dentist.
So
our dentist isn't as scary as that.
No.
So.
And it wasn't that bad, but yeah, that it did make a difference. So here I am again, and I'm happy to be back on the microphone. Second, I watched a lot of new movies. As Laura was saying, we were watching the Uncharted film. We already discussed that, and yeah, we'll have to talk about that again a little bit more. But we also were watching some other movies, and other than Uncharted, we also watched Osmosis Jones.
Which is not a new movie.
What a flashback that was to see Bill Murray eating a deviled egg off the floor of a monkey's cage in a public zoo.
It's nasty.
Yeah, please don't ever do that, listeners. Please don't ever eat food off the ground like that and expose yourself to germs. This is
especially in the world of COVID. Let's not. I think people know better.
This is
now.
the Screen Slurps public
PSA.
PSA for keeping yourself healthy. And other than that, I will be beginning to read some brand new comics this coming week, because I have not dived into the Invincible comic yet. However, I did pick up the entire first catalog of Invincible, which is not even close to covering everything that the first season of Invincible does in the Amazon Prime series of Invincible. Based off of the comic, the entire first season just covers the most minuscule amount that the comic series does, and boy, is the comic series long. So I'm at a standstill whether I should start reading the comic series of Invincible or if I should just wait for
I think
the
you should
series.
read. It's going to be a while if you have to wait.
If I just read the whole thing, I'm going to cover all of the bases, everything, before that television Amazon Prime series comes out. So I might just do it. I might just cave in and just read everything that's out there. And once again, just to clarify, the Invincible comic series was created by the same author who created The Walking Dead, which is awesome. Two sides of the coin there, by having one series about zombies, The Walking Dead, and Invincible about superheroes.
Did you watch a lot of The Walking Dead?
I did not, actually. I really didn't watch too much of The Walking Dead.
I watched a good portion. I watched until Glenn died, and then I was just so upset that they killed him off that I stopped. So I haven't seen anything past then. Maybe I'll go back to it. It was a great show.
Maybe I'll have to jump into it.
It was such a good show.
All the people that come in and go out.
Yeah.
But that pretty much does it for my side slurps. And with that being said, I say it's time that we dive into our film of the week, which is Come On.
Adam is glaring at me right now. You're no fun, Adam.
Hey, that's not nice. I didn't know the Spice Girls were showing up to our show this week.
Yep. I am the sixth Spice Girl that was never known. What kind of spice would I be? Deaf Spice?
Shaky Spice?
Shaky Spice? I'm not shaky.
Chakra Spice?
Chubby Spice. Pizza Spice.
Ooh, Pizza Spice.
That's you. You're Pizza Spice.
Come on, come on. Released in 2021, as told by Pizza Spice. Directed by Mike Mills. Written by Mike Mills. Produced by Chelsea Bernard, Lila Jacob, and Andrea Longacre White. With cinematography by Robbie Ryan. Edited by Jennifer... This is a tough one. I'm sorry, Jennifer. Jennifer Vecchiarello. Distributed by A24.
Woo!
And released on September 2nd, 2021 for Telluride, and November 19th, 2021 in the United States. Our box office estimate, pulled from Wikipedia, was with an $8.3 million budget, and it made $4.3 million in the box office. So with those numbers, I just want to say sorry,
It's
Mike
COVID
Mills.
times.
Yeah, it was the COVID times. So
I feel like
this is why I say estimate.
Yeah, I feel like we can't really trust box office numbers anymore.
Right.
So many people watch it, from home and streaming services. Now.
Exactly. I don't know how many people were really going to the movie theaters in 2021, even with 2021 being the kind of recovery time of COVID. 2021 was kind of the time where it's like you could go out, get your COVID shot.
Depends on where you were, too.
Exactly. And with the time being COVID potentially or possibly dimming down a little bit and mask restrictions possibly lightening up a little bit, depending on where you were, maybe people are thinking, yeah, I'll start going to the movie theaters a little bit more. But also, I think streaming popularity was rising so much more. So like you were saying, Laura, I was thinking maybe a lot of people are thinking that they're not going to go out to the movie theaters as much. So it's kind of more in favor of just renting this movie on a streaming service instead of going to a movie theater. You could buy a ticket at a movie theater and pay at a box office per se, or you could just pay that $20 streaming fee or whatever the streaming service is charging you to have access for 48 hours. So I think that's really what it comes down to.
I think that box office numbers shouldn't even be considered anymore, and it should really just be, reviews.
Yeah. I am in a little bit of a agreement there. It's really it all depends. I think a lot of
I'm not saying that to say that people shouldn't go to the movies. I love going to the movies, and I think it's an experience. But I just think, like you're saying, in the world that we're in now, with the availability of streaming services and people feeling more comfortable being at their home, a lot of people are choosing to do it that way. So I just think that should, be taken into consideration.
I wouldn't want the movie theater accessibility to just be destroyed that way, though. And I think that's where a lot of it is going now because of the accessibility through streaming services. It's really putting a hinge on going to the movie theaters. And I think that's why a lot of these movie releases are now saying it's only being released at a movie theater.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like, that's just how the world is, right? I mean, Amazon killed malls.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind...
Anyway, I feel like there's a lot of tangents this episode, but we just have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, Laura. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, Laura.
Yeah.
Don't make me dumb.
What?
Give me the plot of this movie, Adam.
Pizza Spice wants to be known.
Pizza Spice.
I feel like this movie was definitely one that wanted to be part of the theater system and not part of the streaming media. But regardless of all of that, regardless of its box office budget or what say the plot of this film. The plot of this film.
What say they? You went like pirate on me suddenly.
Hey, we can talk like pirates all day long. So, the plot of this film, the plot of Come On, Come On. This film is all about a man named Johnny, played by Joaquin Phoenix. And in summary, Johnny is an emotionally stunted and soft-spoken radio journalist who travels the country interviewing a variety of kids about their thoughts concerning their world and their future. Then, Johnny's saddled with caring for his young nephew, Jesse. Jesse brings a new perspective, and as they travel from state to state, effectively turns the emotional tables on Johnny. Who would have thought? So isn't that something that Johnny, his job, his life, which I gotta say, way to go, Johnny. I love that this is what you do for a living, honestly. And his life is being a radio journalist. Basically, is this not essentially what most podcasters are doing?
I was going to say, it was very podcasty.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah. It seems like he's a podcast.
Yeah.
A podcast host.
It's the life of being a podcaster. It depends on what kind of podcast you're making, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it was kind of like he was like a radio journalist for an NPR-esque place, right? So
it did very much seem that way.
And what is a podcast? It essentially is also like a radio show.
Right.
NPR version thing, right?
Yeah.
So same thing.
Public radio, podcasting, they're one in one.
Go hand in hand.
More or less anymore. But regardless of that, what he was doing was traveling with a shotgun microphone and walking around state to state and interviewing children, as I was saying. And interestingly enough, it would be getting very deep in the questions that he would ask these kids. It seemed so innocent as he would be going in what looked like little classrooms or things like that with his little microphone, and he would just ask them questions, again, that would seem very simplistic to adults, but to these little children, they would be giving you these wholehearted answers, and they would make you think as an adult, because to a kid, they're just telling you like it is at their very young age.
Yeah.
They'd be 6 or 7-year-old children, but to us, we're just thinking to some simple question, like one of the questions would be something like I asked Laura at the beginning of this episode, which I'm trying to think back, what exactly did I ask you, but something along the lines of,
like, are you hopeful for the future? What do you think the future is going to look
exactly
like? You know, things like that. No, I agree. I think that's one of the really strong parts of this show is I think a lot of times older people discount children and younger people and think that, oh, you know, they're young. They don't really know what's going on. They don't get anything. They're not experienced, what have you, whatever little things they have to say about them. And I just think that's such like bull crap. I think kids and even, you know, younger adults and things like that, I think they are so insightful. They see and take in so much of the world that is happening around them. And they they haven't experienced so many things yet, but that means that what they've taken in is like been really meaningful to them, right? And I love the idea of this kind of podcast because I just think, I mean, they're our future, right? Like this younger generation is our future. And just seeing how they respond to these questions and the thoughts and just how smart they are at such a young age, it gives me hope for like what the future will be like if they're the ones leading it.
Yeah, and so Joaquin Phoenix's character, Johnny, it's his job to be going to these different kids, asking these similar yet different questions to each of these kids and recording their responses for his show. And then he would also be on his own time recording his thoughts and his perception on what these kids were saying as he's logging the information for the show. And I think he would just kind of be journaling his own thoughts as well, almost kind of like a blog for himself as he recorded things for his insight. And I thought that was so intuitive and so thoughtful for a job to be sharing that with so many people. And it really got me thinking. As Laura was saying, I think this is so great to be sharing the thoughts of these children with other people and to be able to listen to shows like this, or for the sake of this movie, to be listening to a show like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is just so great to be able to share something like that. And that's where I think really puts the plot of this film in action, is that this is a man's career where it's his job to go from kid to kid to another kid, all these kids that he doesn't know, hearing their thoughts and hearing how different they are, but like these mind-opening, big thoughts on these little questions. And then out of the blue, his sister has to take care of her husband, who is having basically what is essentially bipolar mental health issues. And she has to have him go to the doctor and essentially be admitted into the ER, and she has to take care of him there. And she's asking Johnny if he can watch her child, which is Jesse, for a while she takes care of her husband. And now Johnny has to take care of this young child, Jesse, and basically have Jesse stay at his place and have Jesse go with him as he goes to work. And all of these roadblocks keep popping up where it's kind of like, first it's just Jesse's going to stay with him throughout the week, and nothing is going to be getting in the way. It's just going to be a short stay. But then all of a sudden he has to find something to do with Jesse, or else he's not going to be able to go to New York City for his job. And then he realizes over time, like, maybe I can take Jesse with me to New York City, because they start developing a bond with one another. First, they don't get along. First, Jesse and Johnny are kind of at a standstill with one another. Jesse doesn't really like Johnny that much.
I don't think it's that they don't get along. It's, Johnny has never had kids. He interviews kids, yeah, but like he's never actually like been with a child, and been a caretaker. I think that's the biggest part of this movie is like the relationship between the two of them and the idea of parenting and how hard parenting can be. I mean, I don't have a kid, so, I don't really know, but that's what this movie is about, and yeah, it's just the blossoming of their relationship and the ups and downs that happens when you have a child.
Yeah, and I mean, as an audience member, we see that even though Johnny spends all this time interviewing children as a radio host, as a interviewer for his job, he doesn't know at all how to take care of children or what to do when he's talking to them as essentially what would be a father figure. He's not Jesse's dad, and he doesn't have experience as a caretaker to a child of his own. And so there's multiple scenes in this movie where he calls on his sister, Viv, who is Jesse's mother, and he's asking her, hey, I accidentally yelled at Jesse when we were in the store, and I didn't mean to yell at him, but it's just he ran away from me, and I was really scared. I tried telling him that he can't do that because if he goes off, then I don't know where he is. And he got really upset with me, and she has to explain to him, that's okay. Sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah.
And
I think Viv had some really good takes on parenting, like throughout the movie. They were just the way she would explain things to Johnny sometimes. Again, I don't have a kid, so I'm not a parent. But, like I was a nanny, you kind of similar, not really. But just some of the ways she was describing like how you have to parent, and the advice that she would give Johnny to be like, yeah, it sucks sometimes. Like sometimes you want to yell at them and you just want to tell them to shut up and sit down. But, there's a little person with all of these feelings that they don't totally understand how to convey or even understand at this point in their life. And you have to help them to kind of understand what they're feeling. And like in that phone call, like you were just saying with Johnny, when he's like, I scared him. And she's like, you just need to apologize. Like he's a person too. You need to let him know that his feelings he's allowed to feel that way. Right. But you need to apologize for it. And it's just like, again, I just think a lot of people don't understand that children are still human beings. Like, you can't just yell at them and like tell them what to do. You have to help them understand who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that it was also nice too to see that she explained that to Johnny, and she also asked Johnny while they were on the phone in that particular scene if she could talk to Jesse on the phone, and then explained to Jesse that hey, Jesse, you can't just run away from Johnny. You have to understand that that's not the right thing to do, and you're gonna scare him if you do that. He was scared that you were gonna leave him, and if you keep doing things like that, you're not gonna be in sight of him, and you're gonna scare him, and like you'll get scared, and it goes on,
And that keeps happening throughout the movie. There's it just keeps happening where something happens and Johnny doesn't really know how to react or what he should do. And he learns from that. And, Jesse is helping him learn how to react in certain ways. They're both teaching each other things. And really, that's what this movie is about. The heart of it, right, is about the relationships and really the ups and downs of parenting and how like joyful it can be, but also how frustrating it can be at times. And I just thought it was such a humanist, like it's just a very human movie. The relationship between an uncle and his nephew, and just it felt so real, and there wasn't crazy conflict. It was just relationship and the trial and error of relationships and how messy they can be at times, but how worthwhile they can be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just so interesting to see the relationship between Johnny and Jesse and his sister Viv, and I think the big pull I had from this movie, as I believe that really you're taking the words out of my mouth here, really, but it's just the relationship between all of the characters. We didn't really see much of Viv's husband, understandably so, because
but you can still see the impact of him on the relationships.
Exactly. They did show his relationship that he had through flashbacks with Jesse, which clearly was a very strong one. He clearly was bonding very well as a father figure through his positive times with Jesse. And you can already tell from the beginning of the film that Johnny, even though he is technically Jesse's uncle, didn't really have much of a play in the relationship with Jesse. And Jesse has no idea in the beginning of this film how to really interact with Johnny at all. He doesn't know, he doesn't really have much of a bonding experience at all with Johnny in the beginning of this film. And the relationship between Viv and Johnny in the beginning of this film is a little sour because of their experience with their mother. And so for Viv to call on Johnny to take care of Jesse is sort of a last stand, as she has to call on him to take care of Jesse. She really doesn't seem like she wants that to happen, but she kind of has to. And he's going to do it anyways because he can. But we can tell as this movie plays out that it's not so bad as I think they both thought it would be in the very beginning, but it just brings their bond together as it plays out and becomes a much stronger and stronger bond as the movie goes along.
Yeah, no, I think the focus of the movie is the relationship between Johnny and Jesse, but I think the relationships between the adults is just as important because, as we kind of said, they had such a big impact on Jesse. I mean, even just so Paul, his father, Viv's estranged husband, Jesse knows something's wrong, right? He knows that his dad is dealing with something and he's not in a good place. And you see Jesse, when he's talking to Johnny, sometimes asking, like being fearful that he will have the same issues when he's older, right? He even asked Johnny, like, will I be like my dad? So you're already seeing that relationship between the two of them. Yes, he loves his dad, and yes, he enjoyed being with him, but at the same time, he's seen like the darker side of his dad as well, and is worried that that's going to happen to him. And he sees what that does to his mom. Like he talked about how his mom sometimes is just sad all the time. Like he's seeing that. So it's having a strain on her and how she's reacting to Jesse too. And then the relationship between Viv and Johnny, like you're saying, they kind of fell apart after their mother was dealing with dementia and she died. And Jesse sees how that's affecting his mother as well when he asks Johnny, like, why don't you and my mom talk? Why, like, what happened? So it's this kid, he's just like, again, I just think they're just so insightful. Like, that's the word I keep wanting to use. They see so much and take in so much. He's seeing all these 3 adults in his life who are like struggling with things, and he's realizing that they are struggling, and he's trying to figure out why they are.
Well, and he mentions so many things about his mother that he's got such a great memory and detail of, that you were kind of bringing up about Viv, that he is mentioning to Johnny the fact that sometimes she'll just cook an entire steak for herself and eat the entire thing. Sometimes she'll just have friends over just to hang out with her friends and do all of that by herself. She'll just hang out with a friend. And when she's talking with her friends, Jesse mentions that he heard her mention one time that she had gotten an abortion or something along those lines. And when he brings that up to Johnny, Johnny mentions that she had never told him that.
Mhm.
And that was a moment in the film that I was thinking, my God, Jesse had heard about his mother getting an abortion, but Viv had never told her own brother about that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, that just goes to show like how strained the relationship was between the 2 of them.
yeah. And then it just goes to show the mind of a child and how much they take in.
Mhm.
And what Johnny is just now learning, that, wow, there is a lot of brain cells that these children have that I need to keep in
Yeah.
mind as I continue to interview them.
And I think I just love the relationship because I feel like, yes, he's his nephew, so he's family. But at the same time, I feel like Johnny really does like start to just love Jesse as a person. They seem to have so much fun together. And yes, it's stressful at times and he gets scared and he has to yell at him. But think of all the happy times that they show through the movie, like how Johnny was teaching Jesse how to use the audio equipment and things like that. Like, you can just tell they enjoyed being together. They had a bond that would like got so strong during the few weeks that they were together. And I just thought it was so sweet. And I mean, to jump to the end kind of as we're going all over the place, I just loved how, Jesse learns that his dad's doing better and his mom's going to come get him so he can go back home. And, he's scared that he's going to forget all of the times that he had with his uncle. He asks, like, will I remember this? And Johnny's like, no, maybe not. But, I won't forget. And Johnny knows Jesse's sad about forgetting it. So he gives him like a recording of their entire time together so he can listen to it and remember like what they were doing and where they went and the things they experienced. And I just thought it was so sweet.
Yeah, and he tells Jesse that he'll remind him years down the road.
And the movie ends with such hope, right? So it seems like Viv and Johnny have a better relationship because of this. And Jesse and Johnny now have a relationship together. And, hopefully the dad is doing better so their family can kind of get, grow back together and be stronger, and which I think Jesse needs. It'll make him happy.
To get a little bit on the technical side of things, I just want to talk about the cinematography a little bit with this film, which I found a very interesting article about the cinematography on thewrap.com for this film, and a few quotes that I found about the cinematography from the director, from Mike Mills. Mike Mills had said, I knew the film had to be in black and white. It underlines the fable quality of the story. Black and white thrusts you into symbolic space. It's more expressionistic and more about art and stories and all of our reflections on ourselves. Also, you don't see black and white movies about kids very often, and I knew it would help the audience take this kid more seriously. It takes your focus off all the textures in the color world and lets you just look at human faces. And then it goes on, as it says, that it was a challenge that both men were eager to accept. And then Mike Mills continues on. The favorite had all those big interiors with just light coming in the windows. Mike Mills said, and I thought a similar thing could be done for a contemporary film in black and white. We used a lot of natural light, which Robbie Ryan is so good at, so that the film has a kind of al dente, not overworked use of black and white.
Al dente.
Yeah, al dente. Robbie Ryan is the cinematographer for this film. And to continue on, Mike Mills also said that Gordon Willis, who is the cinematographer for The Godfather, understood how to make a dark scene feel motivated, and Robbie is a master of that chess game too. Robbie can light a room at night so that it looks like he didn't do anything. You need so much depth and talent to pull that off, which and that and all of that. That's the last of the quote. Which I just got to say that I agree. The cinematography for this film I thought was absolutely fantastic for a black and white film, and I very much appreciate contemporary directors choosing to do a black and white film because you just don't see it quite as often as you used to. I mean, black and white was just the lay of the land in classic films because that's all you could do back in the day. It was black and white film. That's all there was before color was an option. And then when color became an option, then that was all there was because, when color became a thing, then why do black and white anymore? But now black and white, I feel, is an extreme rarity because color here and color there and color is just all anyone wants to see. But if black and white is an option for your film, then it's really a choice.
Well, I think there needs to
choose.
be a purpose for it to be
exactly.
black and white. Because I mean, when the movie started, I remember asking you like, why is it in black and white? What is the point? But now after finishing the movie, I get it. Like, yeah, black and white was a good option. It just makes the movie feel timeless also, which I think is important because, though obviously there's technology and things that put it very much in today's time, at the same time, what the characters are experiencing has happened for centuries and centuries, right? Relationships have been the same. Like everyone kind of deals with the same stuff. So putting it in black and white really does make it feel timeless. And as you were saying, the cinematographer, I think, did such a good job that even though it's all in black and white, it was able to really distinguish between the cities. LA had a very different vibe than New York, which had a very different vibe than New Orleans visually, even though it's all just black and white. And I thought that was really interesting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And each one of the scenes, each one of the locations very much gave a very different vibe from one another.
Mm-hmm.
As you're saying, you can definitely tell when you're in Los Angeles, which has a very certain appeal to it. When you get to New York City, you're in New York City with that feeling of the city and the subway and all of that going on, to transitioning into New Orleans, that feeling of being in New Orleans. And it's nice to get that feeling of just automatically knowing that atmospheric feeling just visually.
I'm interested to watch Mike Mills' other movies as well. Have you seen his other two? The other two, I think they were both done by A24. I know 20th Century Women was. But I want to watch those because those two movies, so all of his movies really have been inspired by his own family. So 20th Century Women was, inspired by his mother, and Beginners was inspired by his father and his father's decision to come out late in life. And then he said that this movie was also kind of just inspired by him and his children and the fact that, he is a dad and, seeing his understanding of parenting and how that's affected his understanding of the world and whatnot. So, and I just think this movie was written so well that I feel like the other two have got to be just as good.
Yeah, I don't think I have seen the other Mike Mills movies yet, but I will
put 'em on the
definitely be
list.
checking those out.
Yeah.
Another very interesting thing about this movie is that the music was composed by the two twin brothers from the famous indie rock band The National, Aaron and Bryce Dessner. I certainly loved the music in this movie, and it certainly helped to find out that those two guys were the composers for it.
Yeah.
Because I love listening to The National.
So good. So good. Another fun facts about this movie, the interviews that they did with the kids were actually legit interviews. Those weren't scripted. They really just went and asked kids.
I figured that they had to be.
It felt very real. Yeah. It'll be interesting. I wonder what they're going to do with all those recordings of the what if they did put out a podcast series with the interviews that they did with the kids for this movie? I think that would be really interesting.
That would be interesting. Yeah, I didn't think that those interviews were scripted. It seemed
Yeah.
way too real with those children for that to be scripted. I didn't think those kids were. I don't want to say that they weren't good enough actors at their young age, but like all of those kids seemed like they were really putting up a real line for each of those interview questions. And I
Yeah.
thought, man, this seems like they're actually asking these kids these questions,
And they were.
which made it even more likable for me to hear those kids giving honest answers to those questions. I was thinking, wow, like I'm really losing myself in this
talking
movie
about
for them giving me honest answers.
talking about the kids too. The kid that played Jesse, Woody Norman, he was amazing. Like he's a really good actor for being so young. And actually he's British. So the whole time he was doing an American accent and acting that well, being so young, like he's just, I don't know. And I was reading some interviews from like Viv and Johnny, so the Joaquin Phoenix, and then the Gabby Hoffman who played Viv, and they were just saying how Woody Norman was just like so intelligent and so smart for being so young, and that he was the one kind of keeping people like on track on the set, you know, and like it just, again, kids, man. That's all I can say.
That's funny. That is funny.
Trying to see if I have other fun facts. The woman who played Johnny's coworker, who was also doing the interviews, in real life, her name is Molly Webster, and she actually is a real life radio journalist for Radiolab.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so it was nice that they had an actual person who does it, playing it within the movie too.
I found that the wrestling scene was not part of the original script and was based on a joke during the face-to-face audition between Woody Norman and Joaquin Phoenix, where Woody mentioned play fighting with his brother and Joaquin decided to try it during the audition.
Oh, and that was a sweet scene with them like play wrestling on the bed when they were in New Orleans. See, it's nice. I feel like obviously the movie was scripted, but there were times where it did seem very improv. And I bet you it really was just like Joaquin and Woody kind of messing around on set. And it got filmed and put in the movie, you know? Like that scene, or even when they're just like running around in the parks or something like that. Parts of it felt really real.
I liked when they were yelling at each other at the end. I thought that was just, I mean, I know that's not a humorous thing, but it was a very serious moment that sort of turned into a playful moment because it was a nice way to resolve everything. It was like Jesse was really upset and really frustrated, and Johnny was explaining to Jesse that it's okay to feel these emotions of anger and sadness. And as they were kind of letting it out, and as Johnny's yelling at him, not yelling at him, but just yelling like
telling him like express yourself.
Yeah. Then he started to do
I'm unhappy.
Yeah. But then he's just telling him, I can't tell if you're laughing or crying right now.
I thought that was a really good scene. That was a really good one. It's okay to feel feelings.
Yeah.
That's really what it came down to. Like, it's okay to be unhappy.
Yeah.
Just express it. Tell him you're unhappy. A lot of parts of this movie actually were inspired by, obviously, as I already said, like Mike Mills' real life, but even other things too. Like, you know, the orphan game that Jesse always plays in the movie?
Mm-hmm.
So, listeners, if you haven't watched the movie, Jesse always pretends he's like an orphan and does these role-playing things with Johnny and Viv. And I guess that actually, one of the brothers from the National, one of the composers, like their kid does that. So it was actually inspired by one of their children.
That is so funny.
And even the one line that I really liked, the line that was like, be funny, comma, when you can, period. Like that was inspired by Mill's own kid. So that was something like him and his kid had said.
People are ridiculous.
Using real life really helps when you're writing things.
This is true.
Makes a good movie.
Truth.
Anyway, that's all the fun facts I have.
Come on, Laura.
That's all I got.
Well, with that in mind, I think that takes us on to our reviews of this film. from some other people out in the world, out and about. Come on, reviews from Rotten Tomatoes.
Our favorite place.
I visit it all the time, everybody. Rotten Tomatoes is giving Come On from the critics a 94% and from the audience a 79%.
Good scores.
Laura, what do you think about that? Do you think that's a normal thing that you would agree with, or do you think it needs to be more? You think?
No, I agree with that score a lot. I think this is a movie critics love. You can just tell. Black and white, the acting, the plot, like critics love it. So 94% makes total sense. Again, we've talked about this before. Audiences sometimes don't like the slow burn. They want action. They want to just be entertained. They don't want to think. And this is a movie which is slower and makes you think. So it makes sense to me why the audience score is a little lower. But 79 is still a really good audience score, I think, in the realm of movies. But I understand why some people, this isn't their jam.
And because Tom Holland is not in it.
Yeah, that's exactly why. But again, this is definitely a movie that critics love. I mean, Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars. Like, it had good reviews everywhere. And most of the reviews that are all positive really focus on the relationship between the two of them. I had like a really good quote that I pulled from the Roger Ebert one, just kind of encompassing what that movie was. And they just said, you know, relationships are messy experiments, and the process of trial and error begins even before we fully understand their results. And I think that's just such a good like theme or idea to take out of this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a fantastic thing to say about this movie, because this whole movie's focus is the relationships, not just between Johnny and Jesse, but it's the relationships between Johnny, between Jesse, between Johnny and Viv, between Jesse and Viv, between Viv and Johnny. It's the whole trifecta there. And then also between Viv and her husband, and Jesse and his dad. It's all about relationships between everywhere and everybody, and just understanding the whole spectrum of relationships. And I think that's just so fascinating.
100%.
With that being said, I think that brings us into our slurps up or slurps down for this movie. Listeners, what that means is a slurps up means we recommend this movie, we think that you should go watch it, and we think that you should put your television on full blast with this movie, bright and shining in full-blown armor, just like it's going to save the day. Or slurps down, meaning you should stay far away from this movie. You should not watch it, and you should be in great fear because it's going to take over your castle. Laura, slurps up or slurps down?
No, I'm just picturing like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, like the castle. And it's like, your mother smelt of elderberries, or whatever it is. Anyway, Come On is definitely a slurps up movie. I think it just kind of, as I've already explained throughout the episode, it just felt so human, and just the ways that it focused on like relationships and parenting and regret and reconciliation and, you know, the younger generation and like hopes for the future. It's just so insightful is my word of the day. So we'll just say that again. I think it was great. It's beautifully done. The acting is wonderful. Everything about it. I have nothing bad to say. What about you, Adam?
And for me, I give Come On a great slurps up. I truly believe that this movie is definitely one worth watching, without a doubt. And that's definitely because this movie is something that is just a great reflection of life in a nutshell. I mean, let this movie be something that is just a wonderful learning experience for yourself to watch and be gratefully entertained, because that's certainly how I felt watching this movie. I mean, I loved seeing Joaquin Phoenix's character Johnny as a radio journalist going around interviewing these kids, learning from the things that they were saying to these questions that he was asking them, and then just right off of that having to learn from his own life with his own nephew, the great things that he was going through with his mother and with him and through these life experiences. And it's just crazy to see that. And then I come out of this viewing experience thinking like, wow, now I get to live through this. Not necessarily as a radio journalist with a microphone, full time walking around the streets, but
maybe one
life.
day.
Yeah, I could take a microphone around the streets and start interviewing people, and then thinking about it. But it's just it's life. It's understanding life, and it's the constant life of just
Life?
just thought of life. It's the life of life.
Life.
It's the life of life.
Get a little Jerry Seinfeld there.
It's the life of life. Yeah, I was so mind blown from this movie and the entertainment of seeing Johnny just be so overwhelmed from having to take care of his nephew, have fun with his nephew, the troubles with his nephew and his sister, and just see how it all went down. And I love the score, I love the cinematography, and I would definitely recommend watching it. It's very inspiring to see all of this be put together in a film like this, and then see what comes out of it. So definitely recommend this one, and I definitely give it a slurps up. And with all of that being said, that wraps it up for this episode of Screen Slurps. Be sure to follow us on social media at Screen Slurps on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Ghana, or any other podcast streaming service out there. And if you enjoy what you hear, slide on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. It will help us a lot. And if there's any crazy movies that you want to hear about, let us know. Leave a comment on one of our social media pages, and trust me when I say we will be sure to talk about it. So closing out, I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Laura Herlocker.
Slurps up, and we will catch you later.
Laters, baby.